Afternoon, Tony. It's Jim Peterson. I'm the CEO of Diversified Professional Coaching, and I'm happy to have with us today Tony Boquet, who is a modern solutionary for our podcast. And there are a few questions that I want to ask Tony, but welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Jim. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Tony's a great friend. And so let's start out with how does professional business coaching fit into your role as a solutionary?
Well, Jim, the way Solomon, who was the first solutionary, Solomon believed every problem should start with the truth. So the first thing that anytime someone comes to us needing coaching, usually what they're looking for is some support and assistance in determining some solutions to some problems that they may be having. It's not our job necessarily to give them the answers, but we can help them using the principles of Solomon. We can help them determine the difference between a symptom and a problem because you can't solve a symptom, and yet the symptoms can be just as bad, if not worse, than the problems themselves. So a lot of people go off track and start trying to fix a symptom, and they never solve the problem. It just lingers, and they wonder, well, why is this happening? Why can't I fix this? Well, you can't fix a symptom. You have to dig until you find the problem. That's one of the things that a solutionary is taught how to do. They're taught to look for the differences between a symptom and a problem and work with the professional through coaching, not through actually doing the job, but through coaching, through questions, through discussions, how best to solve the problems that they have. And that's what a solutionary does. They help the person fine tune their problems and then systematically solve the problems in a manner that it'll stay fixed. It won't return. And that's the difference between a problem solver and a solutionary.
Well, that's great. And of course, our coaches dig deep to find the real reason for that occurring. And so, excellent to dig and find out what that real problem is. What is the most common problem facing business owners today?
It, I think it's being caught off guard by symptoms and not problems. Um, one of the last companies I worked with before I stepped away from my position, we did some counseling with this company, and none of their people, none of their leaders were professionally trained, and they didn't see that as a problem. They thought, the people know what they're doing, but yet they kept having high turnover. They kept hiring the wrong people. All of these things, they wanted to solve those problems, but those weren't problems. Those were symptoms that the person wasn't prepared for. They weren't trained to do the job correctly. That was the problem. And until they could see that, they were going to continue to struggle. And today they probably still are because I don't think they ever took that problem under advisement and they never solved the problem. So they're going to continue to churn people. They're going to continue to frustrate their leadership because they're hiring the wrong people. It just is it's a never-ending cycle. And I think most companies are struggling with that today.
Don't you think that maybe those individuals who recognize they have that problem, having a coach might help them to get out of that cycle where that problem exists?
Amen. Yep, without a doubt. The I think the professional coaching program that your team does can open tremendous eyes to your coaching staff and make them aware. And then the professionals they help. I mean, it's just a perfect solution to open the eyes of these people. And there's enough quality leadership training out there. You do one of the best in
Right.
your profession. If we could only get more people to do that, that would solve a tremendous amount of problems in professional life. But again, I don't think that leadership is necessarily the problem, the major problem. The major problem is people don't understand the difference between a problem and a symptom. That's the biggest problem that I see facing every industry in the country, by the way, is they focus. Our government does that. They focus on the symptoms, and then we say, well, we've been fighting this for years. Why can't we fix it? Well, you're not addressing the problems. You're
Right.
addressing the symptoms, and it never gets done. That's the same thing we're seeing in business today.
There are a couple of things that we do in coaching that cause us to get to the real problem by going wide and then going deep. And then also, we can identify problems through master coach sessions or group coaching sessions where we can ask enough questions that we get to the heart of the issue. Because you're right that people tend to work on things that ultimately don't solve the true problem, and therefore it never gets fixed. So can you share your unique solution to finding that elusive work-life balance?
Yes, I can, and I used this on myself, so I know it works because I was one of the worst, I think, for work-life balance. And again, I turned to Solomon for this, and part of my studies of solving problems, work-life balance has always been an issue because people are always drawn to trying to reach these high levels of production, these high levels of success. But as you know, being a business owner for so many years yourself, if you put all your time and energy into one element of your life, the other elements start to suffer.
Mhm.
And it causes that balance issue. We when we work very hard, so we ignore our personal and our spiritual life. When we're with our family, we ignore business completely. We ignore our spirituality, and it's just fractured, and we keep bouncing from one to the other, never leading to balance. Picture a seesaw and you're jumping from one side to the other. You never reach balance. You never get to that point where it's stable. What I've learned a long time ago is just like Solomon, you begin with the truth. You learn the truth, you profess the truth, and you live the truth. And then you jump right in and start doing what's right, do the best you can, and treat others the way you want to be treated. And then the final thing is to do it selflessly, love selflessly. That means when you're doing one thing, if I'm working, for instance, if I'm working in my business, I'm also doing that for my family. I'm doing that in the way that my spirituality finds reward from. So I'm not separating it. Who I am at church, who I am in the house, who I am in my office is all the same individual. And I think that that's where our HR departments make it very difficult because, when you and I were growing up, it wasn't uncommon to be able to say a prayer during a work event. Well, it's not the same anymore. So our HR departments have pushed us out of that balance as well. So we have to get back to that. We have to get back to being the same individual on all three of our personas.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Sometimes um, when you're at work, you're thinking of family, and when you're with family, you're thinking of work, and it's hard to focus, as you say. Well, Tony, this has been great. I know in your signature line, you say your solutions should be bigger and stronger than the problems they solve. And you certainly brought that up here today. So we really appreciate you spending this time with us and for being a member of Diversified Professional Coaching.
Thank you, Jim.
Have a great day.
You too.